Reminds me, Maurice, of one very funny incident we had and I worked out at Patty Freeling. We did a series called Dr. Doolittle. So some animator had animated Doolittle walking off in the distance. He did it correctly, logically, but the guy had a limp, you know, there's something wrong with an optical illusion. First saw it, he says, that's funny. He said, let's leave it in the thing. He said, how'd you do that? And the guy said, well, I made a mistake. He said, well, remember how you made a mistake. That's fine. So all through the series, 13 half hours, we had the guy limping. And the audience used to write in and say, what's the matter with Doolittle? How'd you get that? Isn't that funny? But Frizz knew, he said, that's something funny. It gives them character, you know. Remember how you made the mistake.
He gave it that special personality.
Yeah. Good.
I think you're in a class all your own. I really do. I have nothing but admiration for animators, layout people, all of them. I think that anybody that can draw those wonderful characters that make people laugh all over the world are in a class all your own. Really and truly. You're just really super people. And I believe that animation is going to go on for a long, long time. And talking with so many people who loved the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, said there was nothing compares to that. And they're sure it's going to come back around. And fortunately, the studio can use those, as we know, because there's always a new generation coming along. So it's going to live on, even then, and the new generation's coming.
Well, that's how we did it, it's like we were talking. That was the spirit of the
Maurice
thing.
has two grandsons in the business.
How wonderful.
I got one that's going to work for DreamWorks someday. He's 15 now, he's pretty good.
He is?
They're interested in him.
Good.
He wants to work over there, if they're still working there.
Well, it's very interesting. A lot of the very good animation is being done today is in the commercials.
Oh, yeah.
They do drawing for the commercials and put over their product and all that. And the big studios are putting the emphasis on how live action they can make it look, and how much they can use a computer. And so I've talked to a number of people that are working in the commercial end of it. They get to really animate.
Yeah.
It's kind of a sad commentary on the situation right now. But I go back to the point that the computer is a tool, and you can do certain things on it, and you can use it in many ways to kind of preview what you're going to have on the big screen and so forth. Yeah, whether it's a background or a layout or a bit of animation and all that. You look on the screen and you see it.
Yeah.
But you can judge it there. You don't wait until it gets up on the screen and then say, oh my gosh, what did I do that for? But there's certain camera moves you can use on a computer that you can't do it. But you could do it, but it would be so difficult if you didn't have the computer to do it. On the other hand, you can overdo the computer. The opening sequences on Hunchback, there's a roller coaster ride through medieval Paris.
Yeah.
You didn't ever see anything. It was just cut. You see, they got carried away by the computer. And so it's a tool, and I'm getting notorious for being anti-computer. It's not the truth.
Join the club.
Well, I understand what you're saying.
But we have to use it as a tool.
Yeah, if you use anything as a tool, computers in a sense are a new tool. And sometimes when you get a new tool and you get that excited about it, you do overdo it. You go to one extreme to the other. And I do think that the studios, to some extent, are tampering with that new tool, and sometimes it's much more expensive than doing the traditional way, and sometimes it just doesn't look very good.
It's terrible.
But I do agree with Maurice in the sense that, and you probably have the same opinion, is that some of the computers, for some things, even right now, are actually very nice to have. They save money, they save time, they save headaches, they save, you know, maybe some cell paper, you know, and all of that. But for the most part, you're saying that, you know, the quality of, say, character and of some effects really need to come back to the paper. And my question to you is, why are these kids coming up, or these people like changing, you know, new careers, aren't getting this knowledge? Sometimes they're getting like, oh, the best thing to do is to like get a computer, get this high-speed computer, and you'll at least get into the studios. Wouldn't you think that there should be more animation, you know,
There'd be more
classes?
Get together and talk about things, but you don't ever happen to see it from a few other places.
I blame the studio for that.
Oh yeah, they can't.
Because we had programs, we had training programs going on. Back years ago, Hanna-Barbera was the first one that started it, to train animators, and they paid them a little money, and it
Maurice
was
did it for
on,
that.
on the job training, and it was wonderful. All of a sudden, the whole thing disappeared. It would have been most helpful. Look what we've had today. We only have our old timers who are wonderful. They have to keep using these men. We can't let them retire. You
Well, see,
must not
that's
do
it.
that because we need you.
That's what it
We
is.
never
Is
had the
that
foresight.
nobody has internships anymore. No one
No.
seems to have like on the job
That's
training
right.
anymore,
That's
unless
where
it's
we all learn.
computer stuff,
Yeah.
and that's great, I guess. But it's like we're not getting
Exactly.
the real core
All
of what
those
we
people
want.
Did that, went through the internship, we all did, you all started at the bottom and learned every
Yeah.
phase of it.
It was great.
I think a major difference too is, and you guys might talk about this, the new animators that are coming up looked at cartoons, and you guys actually had to learn how to draw. I don't know if you
Oh, yeah, hell yes, well, I'll say, you had to sign your drawings.
Might talk
Remember
about
that, Maurice? That was
Right.
down the corner. Wall would say, who did it? Who was that guy? You know?
talk about some of the things that influenced you as a young artist as you were in school or going into the business, the things that you looked at that inspired you, perhaps.
Well, I think Todd has touched on something. So many of these young people today have no background.
No.
They haven't gone to museums.
History, that's right.
They haven't gone out and looked at nature. They don't know how to draw a plant. They haven't studied portraits. They haven't done. They haven't opened their eyes to the world around them. They sit and look at a TV tube, or go to a motion picture with somebody who's also looked at TV tubes. You see, and in other words, I have a pet saying. You can't draw a forest unless you walk in it. And you see, it's a diff. It's if you can't draw something if you haven't experienced it. You see, you have to experience it visually. I enjoy encouraging young people to go to museums or go hunting in a library and walk around in the gardens and see that beautiful residence and all that. Get the ambience of the whole thing. This all goes into your background of how you can draw and paint and understand what beauty is. And you watch people.
Yeah.
I watch people all the time, see how they're standing, how they're walking, what kind of characters they are. But these people today, they're looking at the TV tube and seeing how the animator made them walk. You see, they're not having this personal experience, and I think this is the problem that we're facing within the medium today. And to go back to the computer, the computer is this, pushing buttons. It's not drawing. The sensitivity of the drawing, and you see, and so the background of the people today is so flimsy. I give a talk out at CalArts. I have probably 175 people in the room, and I find I said, how many people have been to the museum lately? 3 hands went up, out of 175. And I said, how many have read a book lately? Not 1 hand went up. You see, this lack of cultural background, but now it's going back into our public schools. They cut out the art classes, the music classes, the band classes, or anything that has anything to do culturally speaking. It's not making money. It's not going to contribute to the national product, whatever they call it. It's
Worship of naturalism. That's what Hitler did, Get the degenerate artists out of the country and have them copy nature. Remember that?
oh yeah.
That's the way we're going. Everything is naturalism, which is the death of art. And we're murdering it with this damn technology.
But I think the technology is, as you say, Bob, it's throttling creativity, and it's not only in the visual, but it's in literature, music, so forth. I'm very apt to go to a concert at the Philharmonic and hear a modern piece of music and just boo it. I'm a very nasty boy, but I did that recently and then found out that I was given a ticket to get in free. I booed the performance and found out that the patroness that had given me the ticket was sitting next to me. you know.
Well,
And,
good
and
for
she
you.
turned to me and she said, wasn't that a learning experience? She had a good sense of humor. It was a horrible piece of modern music.
Yeah.
But I'm very apt to, after I see a movie and the lights go on, I stand up and say, boy, that was a pile of crap.
Yeah, well,
Like,
you gotta
you know,
be some-
somebody has to speak up today.
Exactly.
And it's, I get very concerned, really concerned about, you know, not only where our animation business is going, but our society as such. Everything else is going.
Headed toward oblivion, toward none.
Oh, come on now, stick around for a while.
Not us, I mean.
Oh, come on,
later.
oh, come on now.
Down the line, 10 years from now, we'll be strangled by a machine. They'll come out and strangle you.
Yeah.
That would make a great
And
animation.
pick your dial it and the thing comes out.
We should make a cartoon of that.
No, not only that, but other ways too. And we're gradually getting to where we gotta fit in the box. You gotta be politically correct and, you know, do things.
Absolutely.
And the right reaction.
If you don't fit the box, they'll chop off your feet.
Yeah. What amazes me is that nobody sees it happening, you know? Nobody
That's
sees it
it.
happening. And like, isn't it wonderful how far we've come in the last 50 years?
You know, that's the funniest thing. I'm simply, we're talking about funny cartoons and humor and all this, and here we got into a philosophical discussion.
Yeah, how did we get on that track? What was that question?
Come on, say something funny, Bob.
Getting back to Todd's question, which was very good when he said, what prompted you to create your, where did you get the ideas from? You saw a bird one time, didn't you, at Laguna?
Minor bird, yeah. Minor bird.
That gave you an
Well,
idea?
that's,
Yeah.
the wonderful bird, bird, yeah.
Wonderful bird.
Uh-huh.
Where, I saw him over in Hawaii when I was living over there. This bird was hopping around and talking. Never mind the birds that talk and hop around. So I threw him in. I was doing stories when I first went there with him. I just threw it in there. And I figured Chuck would throw it out, but he didn't. He used it.
Mhm.
And they put Finkelhor's Cave or somebody's cave of music with it. It was funny. So he did about 10 pictures with it, which I thought he...
Inky and the Minor Bird?
Yeah, Inky and the Minor Bird.
They don't show them on television anymore, I don't know why.
We're using them in some of our Tweety soda now. We're using him, some of the old characters. In fact, I'm using caricatures that he did of the whole gang there. I'm using them as spectators on a boat. You know, Leon and Clampett and a whole bunch, they're looking for something there. Using the characters that T.E. did. And it's funny, why not? We gotta have people. Why not draw them ugly? Just do characters, real people.
Bob, I don't know if you were there when T.E. was at the Schlesinger's, I don't think you were.
No, I wouldn't. I've worked with him at UPA
Well,
later on.
He had a little Triumph, a little car, and most people drove great big cars in the 30s. And he had this little car and he used to park it in front. It was a two-seater. And every time he'd leave, he'd put on a little tan on his bald head and he'd go enjoying his car. And one day a bunch of guys decided to have a little fun and they picked up his Triumph and they put it in the recreation room. They brought it in the studio. And when he came out to noon to get his car, it's gone. And he almost had a heart attack. And of course, everybody's standing around waiting for his, reaction. And he was just about to call the cops. He went white. And he was just about to call the cops when the guy says, "We know where your car is." And they showed him, it was in the recreation room.
You remember when Clampett got out of his contract? I heard this story, and I guess it's true. Somebody said that he wanted to get out of that contract so bad that he faked some kind of fits he'd have. He'd go into a catatonic state. And Liam
Yes.
got so sick of it, he said, finally, let him out of here. So he got out of the contract. Going to a fit right in the hall there.
Yeah.
He used to do that.
Probably
And
has
I
to,
thought
yeah.
it was true.
Yeah, I think it
I
was.
thought there was something wrong with him, really.
No, they said he was wanting to get out of that contract. The only way he could do it was to be crazy or something happened. Be a catatonic.
Now that'd be typical of somebody in the business to do
Oh, in
that.
those days, they owned you. Boy, you had a contract. You couldn't go anywhere else unless they gave you permission. They call up and say, this guy's 86, you can't work there.
Yeah.
They do it. Slavery still persists today.
I know I used to clock out at Warner Brothers and then go back and work, you know, for another hour and a half or so. Which is a no-no, but that's the only way I could get my work done. And I guess a lot of other people did that.
Oh, yeah. Well, the animators were clever. They beat the system by selling under-the-table footage, you know, they do a little extra and they
Yeah.
increase the salary.
Yeah.
And or that, or they'd get an easy scene and they'd hide it, you know, and they'd
Yeah.
bank it for when they get a tough scene.
Uh-huh.
So they always did 25 feet a week for years, you know,
Uh-huh.
they figured out how they did it. Well, that's how they did it, you know, they just save it for a tough time.
I used to know a very fast animator. It had to do his 25 feet, you know. He had it all allocated for the day. And he'd do his drawings like that, then he'd sit and read a book. And then he'd say, I've done my papers for the day.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't gonna be forced
But you know-
over the line to do more and more footage, you see, that way.
Even in 1958, I think, or 57, Mike Ortiz and I left the Jones unit to go over to Hanna-Barbera. They were just getting started over there in La Brea. And there was a guy, Ken Muse was the animator, sat in the same room there with us. And he was doing 100 feet a day at $1 a foot. He'd write the sheets and animate. You imagine? And the slow guy was doing 50 feet a day. And I'd lay him out and hand him drawings, he's doing 50 feet. The other guy was doing, you know. And he paid him by the, you know, so much a foot. But they were so fast that here he was making 500 a week, you know. And that was big dough then. But that was, they starting on the Flintstones.
Yeah, he was a top animator at MGM too,
Oh,
when
yeah,
I worked there.
fast. Oh, what?
He was the best.
He sat next to me at Disney's in 1937. He was doing 60-foot personal tests then, you know, and writing his tests. He was just a fast guy. He was a born animator. In the bonus system, remember, some of those guys were really making big dough. The guys like Freddie Moore and Ken Wooley. Walt was there. That was, he liked something. The guy got a big bonus right now. You know, the 9 old men got it. Nobody else.
No, he was a played favorites.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
How did Elmer Fudd come about? Wasn't he a character that
Elmer
was
was
with Bugs
around,
or
but
something?
he was a different kind of guy. He had a derby and a funny nose.
Yeah, it was
But
Egghead.
he
at
started,
first.
yeah, actually, but he started with wild hair, same time. They put a
Yeah.
hunting suit on him and he stayed the hunter ever since. And I guess Arthur Q. Bryant did, that was the only voice Mel didn't do.
Right.
I'm looking for a wabbit, you know, it's like a rascally wabbit. So he was the only one that could do that voice. I don't think Mel ever did it.
He didn't like to do it. Mel didn't like to do it, but when Arthur Q. Bryan died, then Mel did
And
do
Mel
it.
had to do it,
He
yeah.
did it, and then he asked them to get somebody else to do it. And I think they got a
Just didn't
fella
like it.
by the name of Dave Barry who came
Yeah.
in and did it.
He
He didn't like doing that.
Somebody does the voices now, and I can't remember who it was on our picture. He did pretty good, you know. But never Mel Blanc. He was one in a billion.
Now, each character is done by a different person.
Yeah, and they would read from a typewritten sheet, you know, well, so Mel used to look at the storyboard.
Well, I heard when Mel was
Sorry.
trying to get into the studio at Warner Brothers, they would never let him in. They
That's
said, no, we
right.
got who we want, we got who we want. Does anybody know that story?
And I heard that one, and also, it took him a couple of years to get an audition, and one time, the guy that used to do the hiring was sick. I forget who he was. but
Norman
Craig
Spencer.
Brown, yeah, Craig Brown gave Mel a big chance to do it, you know, and I don't know what he did first, but that was the beginning of a big career. Isn't that something?
I heard it was the doorman wouldn't let him in, and
Yeah.
that doorman got sick, and the other guy who was there let him in, and he got a job, and he's been there ever since. But the doorman, the original doorman that wouldn't let him in, he died.
No,
That's how he got
actually,
in.
He actually wasn't a doorman.
Oh, he wasn't the doorman.
No.
He
He
was
got
the guy.
into the studio, but he would go see Norm Spencer, who was in
Yeah, I
charge
remember Norm.
of the music.
Oh,
at
he
the time.
wasn't a doorman per se. He was in
No.
charge of music,
Yeah,
Right.
and he got sick.
Yeah,
And
so
he
Craig
just
Brown took
unfortunately
over,
died.
is what I
And
heard.
one day,
Probably,
Craig Brown was sitting
Yeah.
in his spot.
Yeah.
And Mel came in and he said, I'd
Yeah.
sure like to do some voices for you. And he says, well, let's hear what you can do.
Well, you know, speaking of that, there never would have been a Mel Blanc thing if that had happened, if he hadn't been sick, that guy.
Yeah,
Just like the time I was telling before, the time we went up to Big Bear, Chuck and Frizz and all the Tex and a whole bunch, we rented a bus and went up there. So on the way back, it had been raining. We were all drinking and laughing up and singing and all that. The bus went into a skid, hit a little oil slick, and we started going over the cliff towards San Bernardino, you know, looking down at the South Beach. Nothing down there. The only thing that saved us was the crankcase dug into the soft shoulder, and and it was rocking, you know, and we were all in the front, so we all moved to the back to counteract. Tex Avery kicked out the back window, and we all went out one at a time, you know, very sober, very solemn after that. And that would have wiped out the whole damn thing. We never would have had these characters or anything.
I never heard that.
1939 would have wiped out all of it if we'd got killed, if the bus had gone over.
Bob,
The guys-
who was with you that day?
With us,
You know who?
our guardian angel. Or Tex Avery with us.
Who were the fellows with you?
Oh, there was Tex, Bobby Kimpson, Chuck Jones, all the wives.
I think Henry was with you.
Henry, Hogan, Monahan, you know, all the writing guys that would have wiped out the whole gang all at once. We never would have had this wonderful thing.
Boy,
That was 1939 when there were really no characters really.
I knew that about you guys going up to the mountains, but I never heard the story about that accident.
Well, Chuck had in his last book there,
Oh, did
had a
he?
picture of us up there in snow, but he said it was 1944, which it couldn't have been because I was in the Army in 1944. You know, he had me down as a writer. I guess I was a writer. And the dates were off in all the whole damn book, you know. And I think he slipped in cog somewhere on it.
It's true.
In the early days, were you kind of stuck doing one thing, or were you able to work in a lot of areas and kind of help each other?
Well, we pretty much stayed in our own kind of thing. I started off as a writer and then a storyboard guy and then models. And then you were always doing layout, I guess, or background.
Layout and design and
Stayed in the same area.
color on characters, stuff like that. No, you more or less, you had to specialize in your own
Yeah.
field
That's
in the animation business. You became a good animator, a good background painter, or a layout person, or music, or whatever happened, sound effects and so forth. To move the process along, you know, you had to have essentially specialists in each field.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
That's
we
the
used
same,
to-
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That's
We
the
used
same
to-
way as making a motion picture, I was just gonna
Yeah.
say. You have to be specialized in what you do, sound
We used to
effects and
key
all.
things though, Maurice, you remember that? We'd key the props around the back, you know, we key the characters. But as I remember, we used to always have the cell model first.
Yeah.
And we did the background. Now they've reversed it, the smart alecks, you know. They key everything around the background, which is stupid, because they don't know what the character is, where he's doing,
Way
where
to
he
do
is.
it, and like
So you can't relate things, you know? Black thing will be against the black rock and you lose it. It
Well,
just reversed the whole thing.
I used to poke my nose into everything, you know, whether it's music or backgrounds or story and all that. But to really do a really good design job, you have to know what's going on in the whole picture. And so essentially, it is a business made up of specialists in each field. It's the only way to move the product along, you see.
It was a perfect system because everything moved along.
Mhm.
Conveyor belt. Yet nobody worked hard. We didn't sweat it, and yet we did 30 pictures a year. Each unit did 10 pictures a year. Well, that's a pretty rapid thing.
11 pictures.
11.
Yeah.
But
And they
if
were always trying to get it in 2 weeks instead of 3.
But everybody was pretty familiar what all the steps and all the
Oh, yeah.
different departments were. They weren't kind
Sure.
of just focused on, say, storyboarding, and then they just didn't know what happened to it after that.
That's right. He went
Mhm.
through like a real
Mhm.
machine shop.
You were talking about, you know, seeing the old cartoons. Recently, when I went to the washroom at McDonald's, they were showing the Duck Amuck on the screen. You know, you never can tell where it'll show up, you know. But,
Didn't you paint all the backgrounds on Duck Amuck?
I designed and painted the backgrounds on Duck Amuck in 2 weeks.
Oh, my.
I was on vacation and Johnny Burton came along and said, "You want to make a little extra money?" I said, "Naturally, I do want to make money." And so I stayed on those 2 weeks in the termite terrace all by myself. There was a gal answering the telephone and a night watchman and me in the building. And I designed and painted the full thing. Chuck just gave me a pile of animated scenes and said to do something with it. And I could follow the storyline, you know, like this. So I just take a scene and work it out and work it out and work it out. Some of the backgrounds are kind of semi-ad-libbed. One scene I drew with my left hand because I wanted to get a certain effect with it. And it's all done in 2 weeks.
How many backgrounds would that be?
Gosh, I don't know.
Somewhere around
I
50,
don't-
between 50 and 70,
Yeah, usually
don't you
average-
think?
In 2 weeks, 50 to 70 back
Yeah,
notes.
yeah, I blue sketched it out and then painted
They
it.
did 100 in 2 weeks one time.
Not only, I had to figure all the pans, you see.
Got nominated for the Academy Award. I
What
did
was
100
that?
Did 100 backgrounds for Walt Lance in 2 weeks, and he got nominated for an Academy Award that year, 1952. I did it, but you know why I did it, how I did it? By not sleeping, just catnapping,
Yeah,
pasting up stuff. It was the kind of collage, but I knew I could do it. But it was fun, you know?
No, sure.
I know that Maurice designed things that hadn't happened yet. We went into space.
Oh,
You
yeah.
did,
Well,
you did space things before we even sent an astronaut to space.
We did it
Well.
too for Capra, when that
Oh,
thing, we did over there on the crossroads.
Yeah,
We did a thing that was to raise the money for the moon trip,
uh-huh.
which they did. We had to design the capsules, the whole thing, because nobody knew what they looked like. And then if they didn't sell it to Congress, they got the money and they went to the moon 9 years later. We watched that moon, and my God, we had a hand in that.
Yeah. You know, it's,
Just farming.
well, you know, the creative process is a kind of interesting thing. You are presented with a problem and then you let your imagination take over. But your imagination is really very logical. As strange as that may seem. If you're gonna do space thing, then you start thinking how big is a rocket and how big is this and how is that and what are you gonna wear and so forth, so on, and it all. And you design this stuff.
Those guys would say from Caltech and MIT, you guys can imagine, we'll make it work, and they did. You know?
Yeah.
My God, they thought we were geniuses, and all we're doing was using our imagination. And we knew they were geniuses.
Well, but you see, nothing happens unless you can imagine it first anyway. You see, I know years and years ago, I worked at John Sutherland's studio and we did the Romance of Steel.
Great film.
And it's a great film. I don't know where it is now. I've never seen it for years. But I designed a big gantry for a gigantic rocket. And it's exactly what they're using at Canaveral now. They had it rolling like this and had an elevator with
That
guys
was in the
going.
50s, Maurice, wasn't it?
Way back.
52, somewhere around there.
Nothing had ever been thought of along
Before,
that line. But it's now, they're using it at Cape Canaveral.
What's the name of that film?
The Romance of Steel.
Yeah,
The
The John
Romance of
Sutherland
Steel.
Studios.
that was great.
And the backgrounds are painted by Ivan Earl. And I designed the thing, and it's just, but what I'm getting at, you know, nothing really happens unless you can imagine it first. You know, Da Vinci didn't, he imagined you could fly, so he tried to design a flying machine. Yes.
Well, I have a question. You're saying that you have to have your imagination to be able to like bring these things together, especially things that you've never seen before. And
Yes.
and the portion of imagination really helps out with problem solving. I mean, a problem comes up to you, instead of saying, well, it's a problem, I should brush it underneath the rug, I should try to solve this problem using my imagination. Can you give us any examples of some of the problems that came up that are real memorable to you?
Well, I remember, I don't know whether it relates to that or not, but I remember I was at Disney's there in 1952. Chuck and I were both over there. He was working on Sleeping Beauty, and I was working on their Donald Duck picture. And Walt called us all in to show us the latest in 3D, the great things, you know, and it didn't work. They had an elephant, he was supposed to be on the ball, and it was like a pea. They couldn't control the ratio. So when we got through, we came outside, and Walt came out, and he says, God, he says, it's flat out here. I thought that was very funny. But they weren't imagining how to make that 3D work, and nobody could ever figure it out. But that was the biggest problem they ever had. Nobody ever solved it. And besides, why drive? It's dumb anyway, it's nothing but a physical thing. You know, another gimmick.
But then we had, Warner Brothers was gonna turn the whole studio into a 3D studio at one time.
Well, they all tried it. Disaster.
And he gave you a little plastic glasses and you put them on and got a
Yeah.
headache.
You know what that says? That says that technology isn't the answer. It says imagination, intuition, all that's the answer. Not machines and mechanical stuff.
It's intuition too.
Yeah.
But this goes to background. If you haven't had a lot of experience of looking at material and all this and that, when you get down there to drawing and you want to go this way, you say, oh no, it'd be better this way.
So-
Your intuition tells you to do it this. But that's through a mental storehouses of knowledge and experience. And I really can't imagine. I think that this idea that you must think of it first before it can become a reality is very true.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
this is
Thoughts become reality.
in any phase of existence, and so. Incidentally, I do want to go back and say one thing that I don't know how many people know that what's Opera Doc with Elmer Fudd and Bugs is the only cartoon in the National Archives, and they had a big write-up in the Hollywood newspapers. What's Opera Doc, and it's be taken care of in the National Archives for as long as they have an archive. You know, it's a wonderful honor to have that in the Library of Congress, I guess, where they have the archives.
You know, Maurice, it's too bad we couldn't get this thing going like we had at meetings in the Seaford, different places. Get more of the people in the business to talk about these things, you know? Just get together in an auditorium and throw ideas around. But I don't know if they'll ever do that. You know, we used to do it at Seaford, and it was kind of fun.
Yeah, we should sit down I think we need to sit down and kick the animation business in the pants.
Exactly, like we do all the time. You know, the hell with technology.
You know, Bobby and I can sit down and grouse, about it. Where's it going?
Yeah, we're going.
But you go into the studios today, and the people that are running the studios now are businessmen. They're corporation people. They're not looking at it from the standpoint of, are we going to make a great picture, or a good picture, or an innovative picture? It's how many byproducts can we get out of it? How many toys? How many records can we sell? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the real creative business, a portion of animation will come back, because the audience eventually will demand it.
They know what's good, and instinctively they know it's good. They don't know why.
They don't know why,
No.
but they come out of the audience after looking at a really good cartoon, and they enjoy it and they remember it.
Yeah.
But they look at the Saturday morning stuff, and they forget it.
You remember we used to sneak preview these pictures just to make sure. We'd first see it, we'd run them at the studio, we'd kind of get a reaction. Then they'd sneak preview it over in Glendale somewhere, and that circle would come on, they'd start laughing. You know, they knew they were in for a good time. They laughed all through the picture. Then the iris would come down, and we got to laugh on the iris. And the guy tries to open it, and snaps on it. They come out of there laughing. At the end of the picture, they're all laughing, talking about the cartoon. They don't care about the feature. But that's a successful picture, when they're laughing all through the thing, even in the ending. You know?
Well, it's like Maurice said before, it's creativeness, because I know when
That's what it
working
is.
for Jack L. Warner as his production assistant, we did My Fair Lady and The Great Race, we did wonderful pictures. We were interested in how wonderful the picture was going to look, like he said, not how much money we were going to make. We didn't care about that. Today they're so monetary. What am I going to be paid for this, to do this? That their work really shows that. You have to put your heart and soul into this, and like you said, have the imagination. And we did some wonderful, wonderful films that we're very proud of. And I'm very proud to have been a part of it at the time I was. And that's what we thought. We never thought about a paycheck. There was one on our desk. Who cared? We were so interested in seeing that this was the best wardrobe we could make. This was going to be the best design. This picture was going to have the best look in every department. Every department just pulled together to do it, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful times.
That's the whole answer.
It was wonderful times.
Loving the work.
Yeah. You really loved what you did. You loved going to work. You looked forward to going to work.
Exactly, not bad.
When we were first married, Martha used to tell me that she woke up in the morning, couldn't wait to get to work, because she knew it was going to be another fun day, and she couldn't wait to see what was going to happen.
Like, it's funny, I remember a thing now that still strikes me as very funny that happened there. Ted Pierce. He came in one day, and we see him coming up the hall, and he's all, he dressed up, the spats and the whole bit. He gets right up to us, and he takes his coat off, and what has he got? He's got the sleeves cut off, and he's hanging by a string. And there's nothing in here except this part. And that's what they did, and that we laughed about that all day long. Here's this fashion plate. You probably sat up all night figuring out how to do it. And that's going on all day long. And payday, I remember we'd get the paycheck with money, cash, Leon used to pay us in cash. I didn't know why, but now I know why, he didn't declare it. And we'd get the money and he'd go down the hall, we'd go out the window and Swift would come over and we'd go to Laguna, down to Laguna the rest of payday. And we'd keep one guy that would cover, we'd take turns to cover each other, intended to one week. He said, it's your day to cover for us. And that's how it worked, we'd be down there playing all day. But I don't know how we managed to get pictures done on time with all that.
But you did get them done.
Yeah, we did, because we'd work in spurts, we knew what had to be done, how long it took. And probably that's why, if we just sat there all day, we wouldn't probably accomplish much.
Well, it wouldn't become a sterile work.
6 hours a day or something.
Do you think any of that was because you had some good management? You had some people that said you needed to at least get so and so much done a week,
Exactly.
or it won't get
We
done.
did, and they knew we were screwing around and doing it, but they didn't care as long as we hit the deadline,
Was there any
Then they'd come
managers that you
back.
can remember that
Yeah,
you
well,
can say
Bender-
good things about?
Disney had some good ones.
Well, I know they kept very close tabs on things because one time at Warner Brothers, I was called in the office for being $200 over budget, you see. So I knew that they knew exactly where all the money was going.
Yeah.
But we got the pictures out.
They balance it, you get an easy picture, you do it 3 weeks, you get a tough one, you get 4. They'd say, Burton would say, you need another week, It never went beyond 4, I remember. We always went
Nothing
3,
beyond 4.
3.5,
Yeah.
But we knew, what the advantage was there, the director would make out the sheets, the animator would animate it, and then we designed the sets around it. We knew exactly what the hell. You had 2-foot scene, you didn't do it. You had a 40-foot scene, you gotta put a little more into it. So that was a help too. You knew just how much to get away with, how involved it was. Now they do things and you don't know where the characters are,
Sal, you were going to say
No,
something?
no, I just scratching my ear.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't know how many of you have been around the big studios recently, but they have what they call development departments. And they pour millions into them. And it's for story and artwork and so forth and so on. But all these guys think up the picture and they get all the creative work done. Then they hand it over to the production staff. And then they change it. You see? And this millions of dollars. I know you walk down the corridors in these development areas.
Yeah.
And there's artwork all over the place. And a lot of it's just absolutely beautiful. But it has nothing to do with the picture. But they're paid. I know one guy's getting $300 a week, or $3,000 a week at Disney. He's on a 3-year contract, and he's doing stuff that looks like the public library murals. They got none of it can be used in the picture, but they've got a big name there that they can publicize. You see, but my theory is if you do the creative work, you should also produce it. You see. And this makes a lot of the people in the development department very mad at me.
They got people that don't draw, telling guys how to draw, who draw, that's the whole trouble.
Well, the development department say, we do a lot of work, then we turn it over and it's shot down by the reality people, you see.
Bottom line.
Yeah, that's right. The bottom line is the reality people have to say so. And that means how live action approach and how many plastic toys do we get out of it.
Well, you would think that when you guys were in the business, there was a core group of you guys that would work on picture after picture after picture as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
Right, yeah.
now you work on a picture as a team, and then the next picture, you are not even at the same studio. You're only contracted for that one picture generally,
Mhm.
and then when the next picture comes around, you might be on it, or you might be on the third picture, but it's a totally different team. So now you have to figure out how you work with so and so and how so and so is
you gotta
going to
shift
be,
gears.
and then all of that, changes your perspective and your creativity. Have you found that to be the truth?
Yeah, actually,
Labs it.
pretty much so. Actually, I'm lucky now in a way because I'm doing these Saturday morning Tweety and Sylvester, but our unit's unique. That whole place out of 700 or more people. our little unit, about 20 people, we don't have to answer to any of the suits upstairs. To hell with them, we don't even know they're there. We don't, we do what we want, and as a result, we get the best ratings and the best shows, and we get renewals before anybody else. We just got another one, another 13 half hours, which is like twice that many people. Mainly because we don't have to answer to anybody upstairs. The rest of the units are falling apart. They all like to get out of, well, you know, you work with it.
Yeah.
They want to get out of there and work in our unit. But that's unique. It's only because Carl, the director, insisted on having a contract which says the suits stay out of it. I do my pictures and I'm responsible for them, and that's that. You know, if he hadn't, we'd be doing the same thing the rest of them, nothing. And I would quit and go home. You know, but, so that's unique though, but most of them are not like that. They're just the other features and all that.
Well, then you mentioned the crews that work together, for instance, and those Warner Brother days. This made not only for efficiency, but it also made for unity in a product. But we knew what everybody could do, and we were left alone to be creative. And also, we did have one advantage, and we have to admit it, that we knew Daffy, and we knew Bugs, and knew Pepe Le Pew as characters, and eventually the Martian, you know, and so forth and so on. But we were familiar with them, so we didn't have to, in a sense, start from day one to try to make a character out of each one of them as we worked with them. We were just developing the same character and his personality and so forth. This is a big advantage. We have to admit that.
That's right. It was 25 years of most of those guys working together.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
Actually, they're going to know what the other guys are thinking. You go next door and ask a question. The director was king, and they all stayed out of it. Big difference. Now you get some guy, different guy every day.
You walk into these big studios today, and you don't know who you're going to talk to, or who's going to make the decision. So it's become a very impersonal type of medium, and it's all part of the computer age.
Yeah.
And
Civilization.
I'm going to get philosophical again here.
Bob,
Say something funny, Bob.
Say something funny, Bob.
Yeah, say it.
Why does the chicken cross the street?
Oh, yeah.
Get on the other side.
Oh,
Bob,
well, that's a good one.
You know,
I like to say
at the
that.
time that you were at Schlesinger's, do you remember they're having a studio newspaper at one time called the Exposure Sheet?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And they had the Warner Club thing that came out there too. The Warner Club.
I don't know whether they had any of you.
It was the Warner Club.
The Warner Club, yeah.
Yeah.
But over at what was the one we just before the Warner's where I worked?
Turner?
Over at Turner, we had our little newspaper inside the studio was called Kitty Litter.
You know what a funny business is? I get to thinking now, you never know who's gonna be your boss next week, so you gotta be nice to everybody.
That's true.
Like, for instance, now, our place is taking over Hanna-Barbera, you know, who got rid of the big wheel up there, now they're working for her. So you never know who's gonna be, and Turner now, he came through the other day and he saw something about history. He says, history isn't funny. Well, he's right, it isn't funny, you know, it's sad. But he's now practically owning the thing, so you never know, you know, it's the big fish eating the little fish. Competitors can't compete with these big monoliths.
Well, Turner says bigger is better.
Bigger is better, yeah. Bigger is bigger.
Having gone through the whole Turner studio opus, watching it disintegrate, you know, through mismanagement.
Yeah, features particularly.
Absolutely. You know, it's everybody thinks, you know, the animation field is just a bunch of ha ha ha. But there's a real devotion among really people that are really interested in the medium.
It's an art form.
It's an art form, and so we are the more mature generations. I don't use that other word. Really are fighting to try to keep some of the spirit alive in the business, and that's the reason I keep hanging around in it.
We're like Don Quixote, right? Windmill. Windmills are winning.
Windmills. Well, I tell you.
Diogenes searching for an honest animator.
Oh,
No, it is, it's sad today though, if they take it, so, look at it so impersonal, it's just a money thing.
Well, no, I'm, in a way, I'm very optimistic because I know a great number of very talented, creative young people. And they're just championing it as a bit to try and get into, to do something creative again. And all the studios are very unhappy people.
They're not allowed to do it.
They're not allowed to do it. They do something funny and it's taken out by their reality boys.
Up there, we have 5 people have to okay everything in the other units, and you're not gonna ever get anything. 5 people are never gonna agree on anything. And these poor guys make a good drawing and it gets demolished down the line. Some nerds doesn't want to sign, they have to all care. So they never end up with anything, except what they end up with, you see. And if the guys are good at it, I know some of them are good. They're not allowed to do it.
Well, an awful lot of the really creative fun is spontaneity. And you see, and particularly in our medium, and when they cut the spontaneity out of it, then they kill the medium. And this is what's happening in the business. We will have some very lovely live action characters, but why not shoot it in live action instead of putting it through computers and putting shadows on them and all this and that.
When they do Magoo with live action,
Yeah.
Magoo.
Well,
They should have used.
no,
cartoons.
I really am optimistic because there are so many young, creative people that want to do something good.
We just need to tap into them and let them know that, you know, there's more than just computers out there.
Well, at least from my personal standpoint, I'm trying to encourage that. And I'm keep knocking on the doors at Disney and DreamWorks and Warner's and saying, here's a very creative idea. Give us some money and we'll do it for you. And you'll make money out of it. And they kind of look at money plastic toys, you see.
Yeah, they're thinking of that.
And that's what they
We're in
think
the
of.
toy business.
Or, or the nightgowns or the bunny shoes business or anything that they have to make a byproduct of.
You know what, Winsor McKay, who really was one of the founding fathers of this business, used to draw everything, frame by frame, even the backgrounds, you know, that was what the boys think. But it was an art form with him, and it was great. But he says, the hell with it, he says, it's gonna get commercial and I'm out of here. And he did, he got out of business. And he was right, until Walt picked it up years later. But that's how it's going, so maybe somebody will pick it up, you know, and do what Walt did. And realize what's wrong with it, and let the creators create.
Well, it's to make the business survive. We've got to come back to the fact that it's a spontaneity and creativity and so forth that's going to make the audience come and want to see it again. And you know, and it doesn't hurt how. You know, I would far rather see a live action Babe, a really live action Babe, and then to have a reality drawing move through computerized, you know. It's. I was kind of cleaning up my remark just then, but you know, it's just this fascinating with trying to make everything look like reality.
Shadows.
Yes.
Joe Grant must fume every time he sees his characters murdered. He's a great character designer.
Well, Joe Grant and I are the two oldest people working in the business.
Pardon the expression, oldest in your man.
But
Yeah, he is.
he's 1 year older than I
Yeah,
am,
no,
and that's ancient.
yeah.
But
But Joe is the youngest guy in the crowd, you know? You
He
are
really
too.
is.
So what the hell, how do you people?
I see him once in a while. And yes, go ahead.
Before we end this, because I think pretty soon they're gonna, I just wanted to ask you a question. Have either one of you won any awards
Awards?
for pictures that you've done?
What?
at,
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we worked on
Or different,
dozens of them.
That might be something that would be interesting to hear about.
Well, I co-directed and designed it. The Dot and the Line that got the Academy Award. And of course, I designed the What's Opera Doc, which is in the National Archives.
Mhm.
I'm very proud of that I designed and did the storyboards on how the Grinch stole Christmas. And I've been very fortunate working on a lot of wonderful products. Maybe those are highlights of what I have worked on. I do know that many of the cartoons that the Jones unit produced years and years ago are loved by even the children today, and they're 50 years old. They're still fun to look at, and good characters, and good design, color, and story. So, yes, I'm very proud of the accomplishments of all the pictures that I've worked on. But it's not just me; it's all the people involved with it.
To make it work.
But right.
Yeah,
Takes
we
it-
worked on a
takes
lot
it-
of Emmy things, Fred and different ones.
Yeah.
Did you work on something called Clearwater or
Well, we
something
got
like
the
that? That
national
was
award,
not anything to do.
1952 for that guy, I can't think of the name, he had an industrial film outfit at the same time Southern did. I can't think of the name now, the guy we did the picture for. But he won a big award, it was for the Army Corps of Engineers, an industrial film. And that, and then the raid things is the one I invented. I did the first one on spec in 1953, and I did it for 20 years after that. It got 20 years of awards, New York and Chicago Critics Awards, plus Emmys for Frizz I worked on. You know, 3 nominations for Academy Awards in 1953, 3 different studios. Warner's, Universal, Disney. But never got an Oscar. Never got an Oscar.
Well, as someone who's never worked in animation, I think you, both of you, and all the people that supported you, deservedly got the credit or
Oh.
haven't gotten all the credit that you really deserve.
But it's usually the producer who had nothing to do with it, like Sells. They could have done it, Skunk without you guys.
Yeah.
We did it in spite of it. And
Yeah.
so short, Skunks aren't funny.
But you're actually, both of you, Oscar and Emmy Award winners, believe me, in our
Yeah,
hearts.
just for
Oh, yes,
living as
for
long as we
everybody.
have, that's
Yes.
a bunch of
Even
Oscar
the-
You are
winners.
really terrific.
Even the
terrific
kids of
guys.
today, they look up to you as heroes, and
Yeah,
and
but
they-
nobody
they
knows
love
who
that
we
stuff.
are, though. Never heard of us.
But they don't know something.
I heard of you, but not me.
But you know something? Years from now, they're not going to know who Chuck Jones or Frizz were. They're going to remember Bugs, and they're going to remember
Yeah.
Daffy. You see?
Sure.
And Tweety.
yeah, but you guys are Bugs. You guys are Tweety.
That's right,
You
that's what I'm
guys
saying.
are those characters. Whether we know you by face, by name, by voice, by art, you are immortalized in what you did,
We're still the
and
same
you're-
rebels we voiced.
And remember,
Communists of the Boer War.
Maurice, I think you can agree to this, as we said a little bit earlier. The old films, animation films, are still playing today.
Mhm.
They take some of those and they put like 3 minutes or something to it for another generation to come along. Remember, your names are going to go on in infancy and ours won't.
On those-
We'll never be on.
They
But
see
you
'em. I
all
don't- I
will,
don't
just
have
think of
cable.
that. Our
Everybody
generation
has
after
cable.
generation is gonna read your name and Bob's name and all the other names because they know
Every
that you were
day,
part of
there
all
I am,
this, so.
some guy comes, he says,
you
I
should be
saw
very
one of your
proud.
pictures, he tells me what, I don't remember
Yeah.
what it was, it was so long ago, 50 years ago. And they see these things, Maurice,
And this
you know, every
thing, too.
3 minutes or somewhere they're running.
Well, I can tell you that we're the better for having known you
Yes.
and
Amen.
seen what you've done.
We were very lucky we got in when we did, because we've seen it all
The
happen.
golden,
I
the
really
golden
got-
years of animation.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm,
I
absolutely.
think Bob is, struck it. We were lucky to get
Yeah,
in
right.
on it, but we're creating the medium and exploring the medium and so forth, so on.
But then you had the talent to be creative and all to do it, to make it come alive and live like it does.
Well, we were
for
very
us.
fortunate when we
Thank
got
you.
into business because it was the height of the Depression and you couldn't buy a job in those days. We just were lucky we knew somebody on the inside. I know it was my case, not with yours, but we were lucky to have a job because there was three-fourths of the country was unemployed. It was the height of the Depression.
Well, I wouldn't have gone out to Disney to try out for watercolors if I hadn't had a one-man watercolor show at Chenard School of Art, you see.
Chenard was a great
Chenard.
school.
So somebody
Yeah.
saw my watercolors there and knew that I painted watercolors.
Yeah.
So it's,
And they were looking for people at that time, they were
Yes.
starting to build, they were bringing people from all around the world. It was sad in a way because they had tryout things, you remember that? They'd have a group come in, try out for a few weeks, and then they'd weed them out. And some of those guys had kids and all, they needed that job, and they'd leave and we'd stay there because we were what?
Mhm.
They just liked something we were doing, they didn't like the other stuff. Yet some of those guys who didn't make it became big in other fields,
Mhm.
like illustration and art direction, like Mentor Hubner.
Mhm.
God, he flunked in between, he was great.
Mhm.
You know, illustrate did King Kong, all
Yeah.
that, you know. And so they were lucky.
You
Well, we
feel
sure-
kinda talked out?
Well, yeah, I think we covered pretty much, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so.
It's been a pleasure to be here today and talk to Bob and all of you people.
We want to thank you so
Oh,
much
yeah, I
for
know.
what you've said. It's really,
Fun.
we'd
We
like to
gotta
give
do
you an
more of
applause
this
if it's
kind of thing,
okay.
you know? That's right, because they haven't done it. They don't do it much. You don't have these things.
Bob,
No.
I feel real bad that I've had this idea for years and years and years and couldn't get the attention of someone who could provide the equipment or whatever it may have been. I just regret that so many of your generation, our generation, are gone.
Like Mike
People who could have
Maltese.
participated
Yes.
in
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Yes.
And
It's
Paul
always the case,
Smith
though,
and
you know.
Herman Cohen. and-
Yeah, little
So
Herman.
many that were
God,
just so
the
wonderful,
things
what
they
great
did.
contributors, yes.
Mike was a
Yes.
great man. He really was.
But you know a thing I heard, which is probably true, somebody was telling me that he was in line to do The Godfather, but he was beat out by Brando because he had a bigger name. And I can believe it, because Mike did Little Theater.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear that one?
Yes.
And he was a good actor, and I never knew he was in Little Theater. Here was sitting there working with him for years, and I didn't know he was doing this.
That's the first time I've ever known he did Little
And that was
Theater.
why he's so great. The guy was an actor and a writer and everything else, you know? An Italian pixie. He'd be sitting there laughing at someone.
He was so funny.
Like his gangster things. He had gangsters like names like Chicken Cacciatore, Big Al Dente, you know, and things like that. That's funny to me. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chicken Cacciatore. Pasta Fazoula, Pasty Fazoula. Funny character.
Well, great. We're glad you came today, so.
Well, they should do more. The world should know more about